And if you find a problem in that validation, then it is a catastrophic problem for the government. Why should our elections be any different than a DUI sample? The tactics we're seeing out of the DOJ right now are building, said Dax Goldstein from the States United Democracy Center. That's Norm Eisen's group. The New York Times should be ashamed of themselves. Their version of election integrity is to allow everybody to vote no matter what, because they want the election to be representative. And if it's representative, then it has integrity. And how do you get high representation? You have no controls at all. The Trump DOJ looking into investigating state officials for violations of election laws. No one's above the law. They have to follow the rules. Who do they think they are? Just moving things around, not complying with the standard operating procedures, wrecking chain of custody, manipulating dates and requirements for certain people and submissions. Not appropriate at all. Now the DOJ will take a look. Okay, here's what the New York Times report says, that Pam Bondi and the DOJ explore using criminal charges against election officials. Such a path could drastically raise the stakes for federal investigations of state or county officials who bring the department and the threat of criminalization into the election system. Well, I wonder if that would include people like Griswold from Colorado, Crazy Eyes, who does her interviews like she's gonna come through that camera and murder you, your entire family. Well, remember, she violated a bunch of different rules about election integrity and sanctity of ballot marking devices. You can't just go in there and change things around and revise the software without validating it and having other people validate it to certify it, that it's legitimate. If you break the seal, you got to go back through a validation process. She didn't do that at all. She sent her little SWAT team out there and said, I'm the Secretary of State, so I can break the rules because this is an emergency. Never investigated or prosecuted because she did it in Colorado and she's one of them. Now, here, was that a violation of the law to try to rig an election or prevent or cover up a very serious security breach, which happened after her office leaked the passwords on the internet? Senior Justice Department officials are exploring whether they can bring criminal charges against state or local election officials if the Trump administration determines that they have not sufficiently safeguarded their computer systems. I'm sure it's not that, all right? It's the consequence of that. Like, they're not coming in here and they're like, do you have antivirus protection installed on there? But there are safeguards, right? There are compliance standards. Like, if you're going to be testing blood in a DUI case, it has to meet certain requirements, all of the processes, the equipment, and it's highly validated. And if you find a problem in that validation, then it is a catastrophic problem for the government. Why should our elections be any different than a DUI sample? The department's efforts, which is still in its early stages, is not based on new evidence, data, or legal authority, okay? It is driven by unsubstantiated arguments. What a ridiculous article this is. Such a path could significantly raise the stakes. The threat of criminalization. Well, don't break the law. Federal voting laws place some mandates, exactly, on how elections are conducted. It takes us like 6 paragraphs. I don't know how many paragraphs it is. Federal voting laws do place some mandates, but that work has historically been managed by state and local officials. Yeah, we know, like Jenna, like Katie Hobbs in Arizona, and in Michigan, the other one. You know who she is. In recent days, senior officials have directed Justice Department lawyers to examine the ways in which hypothetical failure by state or local officials to follow security standards could be charged as a crime. Yeah, because it's a let it happen on purpose, right? It's not you made it happen, so you're not a criminal. You didn't do it on purpose. Like, I didn't volitionally rig the election, but we kind of just like opened it up, and other people like the Chinese came in with their fake IDs and suddenly had printed IDs that worked according to Michigan computer systems. Already the department has started to contact election officials across the country asking for information on voting in your state. A spokesperson for the Justice Department called Gates McGavrick said the agency will leave no option off the table when it comes to promoting free, fair, and secure elections. Voting experts say that the person and the push by the Trump administration is alarming. Yeah, whatever, voting experts. They're not experts at all. I get so tired of the people calling themselves experts or people referring to themselves as experts. I see that a lot on X. People are like, I'm a voting rights expert here. Let me explain everything. And then they go through some stupid analysis that's idiotic. Like, oh, I know, because you're an expert. You call yourself an expert. A lot of people do that. I'm like, well, just, you don't have to declare yourself a label. Just demonstrate your expertise. Voting rights expert here. Without reliable evidence in the 2020 election, like we saw that a lot during COVID too. They're like, I'm a medical doctor. Or you'd have these people like, I studied biology in an AP class my junior year, so I'm an expert on the virus genome. Like, what? I saw that a lot. And I would be saying, oh, really? And I, challenge anybody in my life. Well, did you go to medical school? Oh, you went to law school. Maybe you should leave it to the scientists who are all wrong. The tactics we're seeing out of the DOJ right now are building, said Dax Goldstein from the States United Democracy Center. That's Norm Eisen's group. The New York Times should be ashamed of themselves. They're rooted in the same lies. Like, I bet Norm Eisen wrote this. The instructions at the DOJ come at the Justice Department, or, someone affiliated with them or friends with them. Since Trump took office, the department has dropped or halted all of the open voting rights lawsuits that preceded Mr. Trump's inauguration. The section itself has dwindled down to 30 lawyers, and yeah, they're revising a lot of things. The efforts to explore criminal charges and state election supervision came as a surprise to some prosecutors. Those describe the efforts as novel and an aggressive way to find chargeable crimes in a technically arcane topic. Sounds like Hitanji, like a bunch of legalese. Election rules, we have to go enforce those? Yeah, but one that is increasingly a political flashpoint. Inside the DOJ, a number of lawyers have struggled to find a criminal statute to match their demands, I'm sure. Yeah, right. There's statutes for everything. In March, Trump signed an executive order that called for preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections, and that's what we're doing. One section directs his AG to investigate and prevent all non-citizens who are in our country from voting, which is the law. It also orders the Secretary of Homeland Security and report on all electronic systems used in the registration process and explain to us any malicious software or unauthorized intrusions into the system. And of course, they're like, this is arcane. What an arcane thing to do. Why don't we just let the illegals and the Chinese invade our elections? That review and report language seems to be a far cry from the kind of criminal investigation that's envisioned by senior hack Justice Department officials who are all corrupt and in on the cover-up. Last week, at least 2 other states received a letter, I would love to read it, from different parts of the DOJ with 15 broad questions about voting policies and compliance with federal laws. One question specifically asked about the voting machines: describe all technological security measures taken by the state to prevent unauthorized access to the statewide voter registration list. Yeah. Other states, including Wisconsin, North Carolina, Colorado, have received requests as well. And the Wisconsin Elections Commission said, we're confident of our security. Great. Any analysis of our system would reassure the investigators that things are secure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, come on in, look around. Here, we're certainly happy to answer any questions. That's the right answer. It's my hope that they, while finding reassurance in our systems, recognize that coming into an investigation with the threat of prosecution tends to be the worst way to handle these matters. Well, it depends, how compliant you are. But of course, if you're in violation of the law, Wisconsin has been a disaster too. So, all right, we can see. Conspiracy theories about the security of election machines have long percolated on political fringes. It's not a political fringe anymore. All right. The CIA released a report yesterday saying that the FBI tried to rig the election, tried to steal it, actually, in the aftermath of the election by creating and opening a new investigation saying that Putin affirmed or aspired to help Trump win the election so that they could invalidate it. But there was no real evidence of that. So the report was just about Russian, minor Russian influence that we know was mostly meaningless, actually completely meaningless, had real no consequences on anything as far as we know, as far as the report tells us. But they will refuse to talk about it. They don't want to admit anything about the 16,000 fake IDs that the Chinese brought in Cincinnati, or the 20,000 they brought in Detroit, and how in 2020 we had some very close elections by just a couple tens of thousands of votes in a couple of states. That's all. And some very strange things that happened that made those numbers shift. So well within the margin, right? Now, even after that election, conservative activists continue to hunt for evidence of fraud. No, they didn't. Well, we did, but no one else did. I mean, the FBI, CIA, DOJ, all of them covered it up. In fact, depending on the election in 2023, Tina Peters was arrested. She's serving 9 years in prison. Remember that? Jenna Griswold from Colorado did the same thing, except she just did it under the color of law. Trump has called Peters a political prisoner for blowing the whistle on this. She is. DOJ has the full power of the federal government behind it, and under the guise of election integrity, no. They talk about election integrity, which means to wreck election integrity, as is always their effort. But their version of election integrity is to allow everybody to vote no matter what, because they want the election to be representative. And if it's representative, then it has integrity. And how do you get high representation? You have no controls at all. You just let everybody come in and vote. Don't check anything. And even non-citizens can vote. Who cares? Give them social securities, let them use fake IDs. No one checks, no one cares. And you can steal elections, which is what they, of course, have been doing.